Hello and welcome to the Romance Track here at ConTinual. I'm your host, Gail Z. Martin and Morgan Bryce, and today we are talking about the Holiday at Caynham Castle series with many of the authors who have contributed to the various collections over the years. And before we start talking about this wonderful fictional castle and this wonderful fictional town, let's have our authors introduce themselves, starting with Anna.
Oh, I was expecting to start with Jeanne because she's top of my screen. Hi, I'm Anna Sugden. I write contemporary romance, mainly hockey featured romance. And I'm delighted to be part of the Caynham Castle crew. As you can probably tell from my voice, I'm signing in from England, where it's a rainy, miserable, dark night. So it's lovely to be joined by friends and get to talk about something fun.
Jeanne.
Hi, I'm Jeanne Adams. I too am just delighted to be among friends, and I'm in Scotland, so that's a cold, dark night for me too. So it's wonderful to be here. I write paranormal romantic suspense, urban fantasy, and space adventure with my friend Nancy Northcott, who's down in the other corner.
And Nancy.
Well, in my screen, you're down in the corner and I'm up in the middle. I'm Nancy Northcott, as you probably surmised from that, and I write historical fantasy for Falstaff Books. I also write romantic suspense, both paranormal and not, and the occasional historical romance, and with Jeanne, outer space science fiction adventure.
Very nice. Donna.
Hi, I'm Donna MacMeans, and I write fun. That's all I care about is fun, but it's usually captured in a historical setting. I write mostly Victorian novels set in England, a lot of corsets unlacing, a lot of fun. And but I also do paranormals. I do time travel, and lately gargoyles. So that's what I do. I have one romantic suspense that will probably never have a companion out there. But that's it. That's what I do. I do fun.
Okay, Caren.
Hi, I'm Caren Crane, and I am coming to you from North Carolina, where I'm sorry to say it's sunny and, in the 50s. So sorry for all of you who are in the cold and dark, but hey, it's beautiful here. I write contemporary romance and have only dabbled in the paranormal since writing these Caynham stories, which for some reason seem to lend themselves to the paranormal. So getting into a little light paranormal, but mainly just contemporary romance.
And I'm Gail Z. Martin and Morgan Bryce. As Gail, I write epic fantasy and urban fantasy and a few other things. And as Morgan Bryce, I write urban fantasy, male paranormal romance. So let's start at the beginning with how this whole fictional world started. And I'm going to toss that over to Jeanne and Nancy to explain this to us. How did we end up here?
It's Karen's
Is there an
fault.
explanation for this?
It's Karen's fault.
Is it my fault?
It's entirely your fault.
I did not remember it was my fault, but okay.
Well, you and I were at the Rust City Writers Conference.
Indeed we were.
And I was thinking about castles because
that's right. Donna was
not thinking about. Donna was there too. I'm sorry. Karen is the one that I grabbed, so that's why I'm blaming her and not you. But I was thinking about castles, as I frequently am, and Karen walked by at an opportune moment, and I grabbed her and said, "Karen, what if we got a bunch of people together and wrote holiday romances set in a castle?" Now, if Karen had said, "You're kidding me," that probably would have been the end of it. But she didn't say that. She said, "Oh, that would be so fun." And then Donna walked by and we said, "Donna, what if we do this?" And Donna went, "Oh, that would be so fun," because Donna's all about fun, as she just told us. And then we came home and contacted Jeanne and said, "Oh, I'd like that. I'd draw plans for it." And so then we were kind of off to the races, and we got Anna and Gail and our friend Ceresia Glass, who's not with us today. And we started creating this castle and this town. And it just kind of, it was a wild hair that other people aided and abetted. And here we are. Jeanne, you probably have some things that you want to add to that.
Oh, I'm all for aiding and abetting. I'm an enabler par excellence. Nancy said castle, and I said, ooh, castle, I can draw that. So I'm the one who drew up all the floor plans for the castle. But other than that, I just enjoyed everybody else's. Hey, can we have an orangery? Can we have a well house? Can we have a garden? Oh yeah, absolutely.
Can we
So
have a
that was
terrace out? I'm sorry.
that was my aiding and abetting.
Well, and somebody suggested a terrace outside the Great Hall. It might have, Donna, was that you?
That was probably me.
Yeah, and so we have that too. We started with your basic castle and then we elaborated it and then we moved into the town. And Anna made a couple of important contributions, especially with regard to names in the town for shops. Do you want?
Well, yes, I at the time that this fun thing was suggested by all these people about castles, bearing in mind, English, so castles don't have quite the same excitement that they have to you guys. I was at a yarn fair and they said, what do you think about this? And I was like, well, it's my buddies, so why not? Let's join in and have some fun. And I was actually walking past a stall for You and Ply. You and Ply are actually a real yarn business, and they very kindly agreed when I leaned over and said, hey, I hear you've got a tea shop. That would be so cool. Would you mind if I put you in a book? And they went, no. So that's how the yarn and tea shop in Caynham itself ended up with the You and Ply store.
Okay.
Anna is also our resident expert on all things England, because we set this castle in Western England on the Welsh Marches, and we're like, hey, what about we do this? And she's like, you got to understand, it gets dark at 3 o'clock in the winter. You can't do that. You can't have a tour at 7:30 in the morning because it's dark.
Trains don't run on those days.
Yeah, exactly. That was a big one. Trains don't run at that time of day. Boxing Day, nothing happens. You can't do that. So she's been our wonderful reality check too about things where Americans are going, really? You can't do that? What do you mean you don't have Halloween?
And we have a catering business because of Caren. She created the catering business. Didn't you do the florist too?
Yes,
Yes, you did.
I created a florist shop and a catering business, and I've used a lot of the town because my stories tend to center more on the town than they do on the castle. So I mention the castle. I have them walking through, reception or something, or hopping on a golf cart and, trekking down to a room somewhere. But that's kind of it for me in the castle. Other people tend to set theirs more in the castle and the hotel that's at the castles. But
and thank God for Jeanne, because without the Bible of Caynham Castle and the town with the maps and the illustrations and this is what the people are called and this is who they all are, I don't think we'd have ever made it through to the third iteration of Caynham Castle books.
I love the working together on the layout of the town and of the castle and the decorations. Early on the first one, it was like, all right, folks, we need to figure out where the 30-foot Christmas trees are so that we don't have them moving all over the lawn because we've said they're in different places. That's just kind of creepy. So getting a fix on the details that we all share has been a massive part of this, like it is with any shared world series. Nancy, you were going to say something.
I'm sorry, Gail. Didn't you create some caves and some ghosts and a special Christmas ornament?
Yes,
yeah.
The ornament.
I've come up with 3 different ghosts because ghosts are my jam. Every book is better with ghosts and maybe a dead body or 2. That's just kind of how I roll. So yeah, mine is mostly in the castle, other than when they go down and take a nice little jaunt through the city and at the town and get a beer. Yeah, there's been a different ghost in each book that I tried not to have mess up anybody else's story. That's always the other thing, is trying to make sure that what you have your characters doing isn't going to cross what somebody else is doing, or maybe even be seen. So because you don't want to throw things out of parallel. And yes, so different ghosts, caves that turn out to be very important to the story, which I had to look at the landscape and say, do they have caves there? Could caves be here? Because caves are a geological feature that can't just be everywhere. And they could, and they were. And then, yes, a Christmas tree topper that the Earl's mother had taken down into the bomb shelters during the Blitz because she was not letting the Nazis destroy Christmas. And so she guarded that glass tree topper, which has become now a family heirloom. And it was fun sharing those kinds of details with everybody to go, hey guys, I did a thing. Just so you know. My famous
And of course, Donna was the one who came up with the idea, which is ironic, really, given your latest story. But Donna came up with the idea of the mysterious gargoyle, that if couples kissed in front of this gargoyle, they'd experience true love. And it was Donna who came up with that and came up with the rhyme. And so everybody's stories involve the gargoyles in some sort of way. And the gargoyles became a huge part of it, which was really cool. It's really cool and fun bringing them together.
That's been fun.
So let's talk a little more about how this town has grown out as we've all needed something. It's sort of become the room of requirement. You know, we said, I needed this. Is there somewhere to wedge it into the town? Or I needed that. And anyone want to take that one on? Because we've done a lot of adding to the town.
Well, as the Bible person, I guess I'll take that on first. It's actually been quite fun because people would say, hey, I need a bookstore. Can we have a bookstore? Ceresia's story and the first one in Christmas at Caynham Castle has the bookstore, involves the bookstore. So yes, there's some mystery surrounding the bookstore and there's some fun things there. So we put that in an empty space on the map in the town, and then the florist and the baker and the bar. The bar has absolutely been a gathering spot for almost every set of characters at one point.
I think I've used it in every one of my stories. The Boar and Night, they're always at the Boar and Night.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because why not? It's a good local pub, right? And for me, one of the most fun things, in addition to just taking part in the world and playing in a castle, has been finding other people's the ideas that people came up with and integrating them into the Bible. And then the new cats. We have cats in the castle now, thanks to Anna.
Well,
So,
of course.
Of course, they have to have something. They have to keep the vermin down.
Exactly.
Working cats.
Working
Of course.
Well, and even coordinating on things like the menu at the tea shops. There we go. Cue the cat.
This is Jersey Girl, everybody.
Well, and I would like to say, speaking of menus, that Anna is almost always the first person to finish her story. And every big thing that they revolve around, that these stories involve, it's always a big event of some kind at the castle or in the town, and it always involves food. And so Anna does her story, and then she sends us all an email that says, this is what people are eating as I've set it up. And I'm sure if somebody said, well, couldn't they have midget quiches? She would probably go, yes, we can have midget quiches. But she just kind of sets that and does that work. And then the rest of us just piggyback off her work. It's very handy.
And sing hallelujah that we don't have to do it.
Yeah, I'm thinking about Anna's personal life, because she comes up with these incredible things.
Food ideas.
I mean, you must be traveling to restaurants all over England. They're just amazing, the things you think of.
Well, my characters are chefs, so it does kind of play into it a little bit.
I think I actually got one of the meals described earlier than everybody else in the New Year's Eve one, because I came back and said, all right, folks, I described the meal at the party. Did anyone else describe it differently? And then Anna was kind enough to point out a number of foods that I had taken for granted would be on a buffet that apparently aren't in England. And so she was kind enough to point out, we really don't do that here. And so how about trying this instead? So thanks to her, the spread is much more authentic than having someone, read it and go, well, this was obviously written by a Yank.
It was also very cool because a couple of famous TV chefs over here set up a program where they made local dishes around the Ludlow area, which is where the sort of castle is in the mythical castle is in real life, if you see what I'm saying. And so it was really cool to be able to insert stuff that was genuinely local and which had been researched by somebody else. So that was fun.
Now, have you used the same characters in each story, or did you use different characters? If so, are they completely original to the story, or did you bring some of your characters from other series? And how did you decide who to send on vacation? Let's start with Caren.
In the first one, which was in Christmas at Caynham Castle, I did use someone who was sort of adjacent to a series that is set in my fictional town of Cross Springs, North Carolina. So I had someone who was involved with an event planning company, and I just created a new character, but she was affiliated with some other characters I had used previously and sent her over there. Since then, it has taken on a life of its own, and these characters I created at the florist shop have appeared over and over. Now I've got cousins of people who work at the florist shop, who are now having their own stories. So it's gotten a little further afield, and I did have to create a new area that apparently is not on our map. It's actually off the map somewhere, but it's off one of the main roads. So
it's only off the map long enough for me to add it.
There you go. So, the hero's house may appear. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, the characters have become progressively more English and less an American visiting Caynham for whatever reason. So.
Okay. Donna?
Well, when I was presented with writing a story for the first anthology, I hadn't a clue what I was going to do. I write, as I said, I write historical romance. So I asked in my newsletter, I put up a poll, and I figured I'd use the secondary character for one of my books. So I had a list of secondary characters, and I had a feeling everybody would choose one person, one character. But what they chose was the character that I least expected, that I only put on the list so that I would have a representative from that book. So now I have a character who had appeared rather extensively in Redeeming the Rogue, one of my Victorian historicals, and now I have to come up with a story for him. So that was a bit of a challenge. But I like the story that came up, and there is a visitation from one of my characters from Redeeming the Rogue who shows up in my Christmas story in the first anthology and helps get rid of the bad guy. And then the second story, again, I'm like, what am I going to do? And it was Anna that suggested using an American descendant from the first couple. And that's how the second story came. At least I had my main character. She had a mission to return some of the artifacts from those two back to the castle. So she has a reason to go to England, and it kind of went from there. But I am stepping in two different genres, from completely historical in my first story to a contemporary paranormal in my second. So I'm sure to alienate some of my readers. with the series, but hopefully please some others.
Nancy.
I love the story.
These are all new characters in my stories. I thought at one point that I would follow up the characters from the first story with the second story. And when I sat down to write it, I discovered it just wasn't coming. And the reason it just wasn't coming was I really felt I had resolved their conflict in the first story. And so if I were to use them again, I would have to generate some sort of conflict, and that just, I didn't want to do it. I did use in the second story Gail's caves and Caren's forest, just incorporating those in that. But I have a tendency to get ideas for series and then just write something in them. And it's kind of a scattershot approach. And so the only books I have written actually in this Arachnid Files series were all written for anthologies. The Capital Danger anthology, a DNA anthology Caren put together, and then the 2 Caynham Castle stories. So someday I'm going to write something that exists in this series that doesn't first appear in an anthology, but I haven't gotten there yet.
How about you, Jeannie?
Oh gosh, both the stories I wrote for the Caynham Castle books connect with my Witches of Haven Harbor series, which is a imaginary town in the northern part of Massachusetts, north of Salem, where some of the Salem witches escaped the witch trials. They are paranormal all the way through, and the first set of the Christmas at Caynham Castle, my hero is the Earl of Caynham. And so I sort of set myself up to reuse, to have him appear in pretty much everybody's story.
Yeah.
And continue on to the next set of stories. His American now wife, he married her after the end of Christmas Caynham Castle, is a former resident of my Haven Harbor series, and a friend of hers visited in Trick or Treat at Caynham Castle. So they are both they're all connected to my Haven Harbor series.
Okay, Anna.
Well, the first story, A Perfect Grey Christmas, came about because the character that most people had asked from my New Jersey Ice Cats series about was a character called Ryan Gray, who runs Gray's Steakhouse, and all the characters in the Ice Cats would go and eat at Gray's Steakhouse. And Ryan Gray was a former member of the Ice Cats who'd been, his career was cut short by injury. And so readers kept saying, when is Ryan Gray going to get his story? So that was sort of an ideal opportunity to give Ryan Gray his story. And then the second story came about because readers said, but what about Susie, who's his restaurant manager? Everybody else went to Caynham Castle in your Christmas story, and she didn't get a look in. So lo and behold, Susie gets to go to Caynham Castle as part of the deal for the second story. And also, interestingly, a character that appealed to readers, which I didn't appreciate, there's a sort of secondary romance in the next story, and that was Marcus, Lydia's brother. So he gets his happy ever after too.
Yay!
Yeah. Now, I should say up front, I'm writing male-male romance. Everybody else is writing male-female. So that's a little bit of a difference right there. I also tend to do established characters in my series. And so the first one in the Christmas series, I took Teague Logan and Anthony Benton from my Deadly Curiosities urban fantasy series that's written under the Gail Z. Martin name. And I actually wrote in their plan to go to a castle in England for Christmas in the book that was coming out before Christmas at Caynham Castle. So at Teague's birthday, one of the things Anthony gives him, besides an engagement ring, is setting them up for this Christmas in the UK. So that was kind of fun because it tied back to the series, and then it also got to see the guys go overseas and explore the castle. And of course, Teague's magic as a weaver witch comes into play with a very haunted and important tapestry. And then in the Trick or Treat books, I sent Eric and Ben over from the Treasure Trail series, and their magic comes into play with the plot and the mystery underneath the story. And in New Year's Eve at Caynham Castle, we've got Simon and Vic from the Badlands series. And once again, being able to see ghosts, talk to ghosts, because Simon's a medium, shows up quite a bit and determines the story that I wrote. And so it's fun to put the guys that everyone knows from the series in a fish out of water situation, because a few of the characters have traveled extensively, many haven't. And so you get to see not only the castle through visitors' eyes, but sometimes you also get to see the whole experience of traveling from someone who may not have ever really been overseas before, and is very much not not used to doing some of the things that come with the experience. So we talked about the Christmas story, but let's talk about doing a trick or treat story in a country that doesn't really do trick or treat with the same gusto that we usually do it here in normal years. Anyone want to wade into that territory?
Well, I will, because having now experienced Halloween in Scotland, which is like a non-starter, considering that most of our traditions probably came from here. Americans have taken that and just run with it. It was interesting to see how little Halloween decor, how little trick-or-treating. Some of the kids were doing things at school, but there was not like neighborhood things. And so it ended up with Trick-or-Treat at Caynham Castle, because my character's wife is American. There was a little more, we were able to infuse a little more trick-or-treat into the castle, but also we focused more on bonfire night, which is November 5th. Am I right, Anne? It's November 5th.
That's
right?
correct. Yep.
Yeah, which is a really big deal here. Surprising
night
to Americans. What?
It's Guy Fawkes night,
Yeah.
but also known as bonfire night. Yeah.
And it's a very big thing here. And, it was fun to experience that. I'm spending a year in Scotland studying and experiencing some of these things after having already written about it and not ever knowing anything about it except what Anna was able to tell us or what I was able to read. It was really strange to then go, wow, it really is a big deal. This is cool. And wow, Halloween is so not.
And you're such a big Halloween decorator that, you had to do without your skeletons and your dragons and all of your other decor.
I know, it's awful. I actually brought some with me, just so I wouldn't be homesick. I would die.
If you'd come to Cambridge, we had carved pumpkins and trick-or-treating.
Yeah.
Anybody else want to weigh in on the interest of pulling trick or treat out of bonfire night and working all those things into their story?
I didn't do much with trick or treat. My story ends on bonfire night, which I have to say, it's odd to celebrate that somebody failed to blow up the Houses of Parliament, but since people have a big fire and they stand around it and they eat and they drink, I really think that's a custom we need to adopt in this country. Just saying.
And fireworks, don't forget fireworks.
Oh, yeah, fireworks.
I just created a forest that ended up having a water spirit in it. So that was why we ended up with a new forest, because why not? I mean,
Why not?
I had to think of something. And when I was doing research on myths and legends and, ancient things that had come out of British mythology, I found that water spirits were quite abundant, not necessarily in the area where our castle is set, but water spirits in general had a very ancient history. And so I created a water spirit. Why was she there? I don't really know, but she was. So.
I mean, I had ghosts in all of mine, and ghosts, trick or treat, Halloween. I mean, hello. So ghosts go with everything. They kind of match the decor probably because they're transparent. Anyhow, anybody else want to toss in on Halloween?
Well, also, I mean, ancient castle, ghosts, the obvious thing to do. And we may not have Halloween, but we do like a good party. So why not?
That's one thing we never fail to do. We never fail to party in each of these books. We always have a good party.
So we have a new one coming up this year, Ring in the New at Caynham Castle. And this one doesn't happen right after the first Christmas. It's actually a couple of years later. So we go a different year with each holiday. And so without any spoilers, anybody want to talk a little bit about looking at New Year's Eve at Caynham Castle?
Well, we have a great idea. Sorry, go on, Donna.
I was going to say the whole idea, usually all the focus is on Christmas, and now you have to do New Year's. And I was looking at the calendar and I thought it was just so perfect, at least for this year. But there's no mentions of years, I don't think, in any of our books. So, but at least for the year that this was created, there were 5 days from the date that my heroine was slotted to arrive, which was the day after Christmas, to New Year's. And so my whole story became about those 5 days with something significant happening on the 5th day. And that led to the concept of a gargoyle coming alive who only has 5 days to accomplish his goal to help the heroine. The only problem is the heroine doesn't recognize that there's any aspect that she needs help with. So they have 5 days to figure it out and have him resolve the issues while he is discovering, I can move. Look at this. I can move. I got my hands, go, all these kind of things that a gargoyle typically would not be able to experience. So he's going through all the experiences of modern day, as well as with this pressing need to fix whatever is the problem with this girl who doesn't seem to have any. So New Year's, the concept of New Year's became very important because whatever was going to happen on New Year's Eve was definitely going to impact the next year. And it did give me a little ticking clock rolling through my story. But I really enjoyed the story, and I hope everybody else does too. Definitely the fun is evident.
Well, somebody came up, I can't remember if it was Jeanne or Caren, came up with the idea of instead of having a party to have it like an antiques roadshow event at the castle. So there would be a sort of pre-event with experts from all different categories of antiques coming, and then there'd be an actual antiques roadshow like the TV show where people would bring in their antiques, which gave the opportunity for haunted items and and all that sort of thing to come apart. So the Blast from the Past experience kind of set us up with something to work around other than just another party or ball, which was really cool. So we were doing something different this year.
But of course, the Blast from the Past rat party gives us a big party.
Gives us a party as well.
Yeah, it was fun as one of the people whose story kind of skidded in under the wire close to the due date, checking with everybody who came before on, all right, so if I do this, is it, no, we already said that. Okay, well, so if I do it this way, yeah, okay, that might work. So it was kind of interesting adjusting to what other people had laid down as some of the groundwork around how the event worked, where people queued up, how they got the items appraised and evaluated, and not running afoul of that. So if someone reads the collection straight through there and going, but wait, you said in the first story that it works like this. And that's always one of the challenges when you're sharing your toys, is that everybody, uses the same kind of setup. Any other thoughts on the New Year's?
Well,
that,
most of mine actually takes place in advance of the road show, just like in Christmas at Caynham Castle, because the chefs are involved and the food stuff is involved. So that conveniently got me through most of the avoiding conflict with everybody else's story. But the great big, the big black moment obviously occurs at New Year's. So it was fun to figure out how they would prepare for these things, and being a fan of antiques fairs and so on, and having been involved with production and so on, it was nice to be able to bring those things in and then let loose on what happens at Caynham Castle.
anyone else?
Well, it's not about New Year's, but I did want to add that Ceresia's story in Christmas at Caynham Castle utilizes a lot of the town and a lot of the castle as well. And this comes from one of her major series. And I meant to say that a minute ago when we were talking about whether or not characters came from our other series, but her story does come from one of the series. And I don't want to neglect to mention that because she couldn't be with us today. And her story is really fun in Christmas at Caynham Castle. So.
Well, folks, we have, as usual, managed to blow through our time just talking about, the 2 books that are out there and a little teaser about the 3rd one that's coming. So before we wrap up, let's go around and have everybody say where people can find you online. And if you've got a book coming out or recent that isn't part of the Caynham Castle series, tell us about it anyhow so we know what to look for. Starting with Anna.
Okay, so you can find me on most social media streams, though I must admit I'm not very good at the social media thing. You can find me on my website, which is annasugden.com, SUGDEN. For some reason, Americans find it difficult to have the G before the D. I don't know why. My New Jersey Ice Cats series is gradually being republished with new covers, and my new hockey series, the Newark Dockers series, with the most recent story, Hot on the Ice, is available at all good bookstores and online.
Okay, Jeannie.
You can find me at jeannieadams.com. You can find me on most social media, although I generally hang out on that hive of scum and villainy known as Twitter. You can find me here at ConTinual an awful lot. And I have some things coming out after the first of the year, but right now I am studying.
Nancy.
You can find me at nancynorthcott.com. I too spend too much time on Twitter, probably more than is good for me, and I'm at Nancy Northcott. I do have a Facebook author page, but it's my least active thing, and I've just launched an Instagram page which has pictures of castles. So if you like castles, check out my Instagram. And I cannot remember what my username is because it has numbers in it, but if you go and you search Nancy Northcott, it will come up. In the new year, I'm relaunching my Light Mage Wars Paranormal Romances, which are contemporary paranormals about mages or wizards, a term you might be more familiar with. And so I have Christmas stories out in that, which are sitting next to me on the side that's not Caynham Castle. And so if you'll look for those in the new year, that would be great. And I'm sorry to say, I don't have a story in this Caynham Castle because life happened, but I'm looking forward. I'm the publisher, so I'm looking forward to putting it out for everybody.
Okay, Donna?
Well, besides this one, I have a story that's completed that carries on the Rake Patrol series. But Berkeley published the first 2 Rake Patrol stories. And my agent has been trying to see if they're interested in this one. We haven't gotten a response. So she's marketing it to other places. Hopefully, How to Bait a Dangerous Rake will be coming out sometime, either in 2022 or early 2023. That remains to be seen. If she can't sell it, I will put it out. So one way or another, that book will come out. It's a great book. It's a fun book. Yeah, it really is a fun book.
I've been waiting for that one.
This is the story where the heroine has a hobby of fencing. And I remember Jeannie and I and Nancy talking about plotting out the story where she gets into fights and she has to fence her way with the sword out of it. There is a scene where that happens, but it is not at all as we discussed. So anyway,
Because it never turns out that way from plotting to writing.
It's difficult to plot sometimes with Jeannie because she has dead bodies flying all over the place. But hopefully that will be coming out. Keep an eye out for it. You can find me. You cannot find me on Twitter. I am on Facebook, and I just don't see going into any other social media. Social media just takes too much time because I just get too involved in them. So I've restricted it just to Facebook. Find me on Facebook. And of course, you can always contact me through my website. It's Donna MacMeans, M-A-C, like a Big Mac, M-E-A-N-S, like a mean person, only a couple of them, .com. And you can find me. I'm very open to fans and to readers, anxious to hear what you have to say.
Okay, Caren.
I have been incredibly lazy the past couple of years, so I have a completed novel that I need to publish. It's one of my Cross Springs books, and hopefully that will happen in the next year. Who can say? I don't know. Life, but the Caynham stories have been the main thing I've been working on. My website is usually more or less up to date, and that is CarenCrane.com. That is CarenCrane. Thanks to my mom for the alliteration.com. And I am very rarely on Facebook or Twitter, but I am there. So
I'm pretty easy to find at gailzmartin.com and morganbryce.com. I kind of live on social media, so I'm always on Facebook, often on Twitter, present on YouTube and Instagram. Pretty active on Instagram, and God help us all, I'm learning TikTok. The two new Morgan Bryce books, which of course Morgan Bryce is the romance name. One of them is Blink, which is the second in the Treasure Trail series set in Cape May, New Jersey. And the other is Trash and Treasure, which is part of the Fox Hollow series set in the Adirondacks. It's my shifter series. And we have a possum shifter and a raccoon shifter who find true love and awesome donuts. So
and both are excellent. I will give the vote of confidence. Both are excellent.
The donuts really count. And then, of course, the story in Ringing the New at Caynham Castle. Well, folks, thank you so much for being with us today. This has been a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward, like everybody else, to seeing the New Year's stories come out. And thanks to all of you for watching and listening. There'll be more romance coming up on ConTinual, so we'll see you online.